Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. You've tuned into Menopause Barbie, giving you your tutorials on menopause, your management, your way, now and for the rest of your life. In the last tutorial, we discussed the 3 phases of menopause, and today we're going to discuss the signs and symptoms of menopause. I know you're doing these in order, like you're supposed to. If you're following along in the book today, we'll cover pages 75 through 77. And if you're following along with the outline notes, we're covering pages 8 and part of page 9. Okay, are you ready for a quiz question? Here it is. Which of the following is not a symptom of menopause? A, bleeding between periods. B, craving alcohol. C, hair growth and hair loss. D, breast pain. E, increased sex drive. F, headaches. What'd you pick? It's A. Bleeding between periods is not a symptom of menopause. Okay, now I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, but Menopause Barbie, just last week you said that early perimenopause is notorious for wacky periods. Well, yes, I did say that, but I said periods are heavy, longer, irregular, or a bit unpredictable. I did not say you have bleeding between periods. You see, bleeding between periods is a whole different animal, and we'll get to that and discuss it in detail at the appropriate time. You see, nuances like that are the sorts of things you're going to learn in these tutorials that are going to make all the difference in your ability to manage your menopause well. I don't want you trying to manage your menopause when you don't understand the differences between very important things. So now we're going to turn toward the discussion of the signs and symptoms of menopause. Today all I'm going to do is list the symptoms for you without much elaboration. But later on, I'm going to give you an individual tutorial on each and every one. And with each one of those tutorials, I'm going to give you all the management options in every category so that you can pick and choose which categories you want to use, and you can even pay attention to just 1 or 2 of the signs and symptoms if that's the way you're wishing to manage your menopause. So, how will you know when menopause comes a-knocking? Well, you know, the ways in which menopause presents itself are as variable as are women. And you know that no 2 women are the same, which means that no 2 menopausal experiences are the same. And your menopause is not going to mimic your mother's. That's one of those great big fat myths. Your mother's menopause is irrelevant to you. On the other hand, menopause is as obvious as puberty. Remember, it's puberty in reverse. And just like puberty, some women breeze through menopause and other women struggle through it. You know, just like puberty, menopause has all kinds of physical changes, a bunch of emotional changes, and a bunch of psychological changes. And just like puberty, your menopause may be worse for your family and your friends than it is for you. So now we're going to just look at the list of signs and symptoms of menopause so that you know how to recognize it. You might say when you see this list, "Oh, I had no idea it involved more than just a few hot flashes." Or you might realize things aren't as bad for you as they could be. You might have already become postmenopausal and only now realize that all that bumpiness that you were having back a few years ago was actually menopause. So, how many signs and symptoms of menopause do you think there are? Can you name a few? Well, does it surprise you to find out that there are 22 signs and symptoms of menopause? That's a lot. Are you shocked? Did you think it was nothing more than just a few hot flashes? A lot of people do. Okay, so now I'm going to list all 22 signs and symptoms for you. The first one is what I call periods with a personality change. Now, they really just are trying to become farther and farther apart. But do you remember the 12 consecutive skipped periods that are a prerequisite before you can call yourself postmenopausal? So your periods are trying to get farther and farther apart. The key is that there are fewer periods, even though they may be wacky. They are not more frequent. You don't have bleeding between periods, okay? So periods with a personality change, that's the first sign. The next one is hot flashes. Now, hot flashes is the one that everybody seems to cite as the symptom of menopause. And yeah, it's probably the most common, most well-known symptom of all. But there's also night sweats. Now, those are just hot flashes at night. Did you know about those? And along with hot flashes and night sweats comes insomnia. You know, it's really difficult to sleep when you're having night sweats all night. You wake up and you're sopping wet and sweating. And if you've had a night of interrupted sleep, the next day you have fatigue. So the next symptom is fatigue. When you haven't slept well and you're fatigued, you're forgetful. Without estrogen and without sleep, you can't remember anything. Anything. I mean, you really think that maybe your brain is taking a hiatus because you can't remember anything. And then you have this constellation of symptoms that are all about mood. Mood swings, irritability, and depression. I'm grouping those. Now, if I separated those, you'd have more than 22 signs and symptoms of menopause. Mood swings, irritability, and depression are a continuum. They're increasing degrees of the same thing. It's sort of like PMS, but it's more significant, and it can become really clinically bad. Ladies, we are less than halfway through this list of signs and symptoms of menopause, and you already have a vicious, vicious cycle that is enough to really affect your quality of life and that of everybody else in your social circle. Look at it. It looks like this. You have hot flashes during the day, and then you have night sweats at night. Because of that, you have insomnia, can't sleep, and because of that, you wake up fatigued. Because you have fatigue, you're forgetful all day. And because you're forgetful, you're irritable. You have mood swings, irritability, and depression. And then you have more hot flashes. This cycle just keeps going around and around and around. You know, that's enough to really, really, really disrupt your life. Can you imagine if you dealt with that every single day and they were all severe? But then we keep adding on to that list. We're not finished. You have cravings. You know, in puberty you had cravings for carbs. But with menopause you have more than just carbs. You have sweets, carbs, and alcohol. Alcohol is a great big craving for menopause. One of the most common, actually. And then, just like PMS, you get breast pain. Now, one of the new things for most menopausal women is joint stiffness and joint pain. It doesn't resemble anything you've ever had before, but it's basically arthritis. And then to add to that, you get dry skin. You used to have no trouble keeping your skin nice and soft and smooth using your normal regimen of skincare, and now that normal regimen doesn't work to take care of your skin, and you notice dry skin regardless of your care. And then you can add to that hair loss on your scalp. Yep, just like a guy who's going bald. In fact, menopausal women get the same male pattern balding. Yuck. Crazy stuff. And then there's hair growth where you don't want it. Hair growth in undesirable locations like whiskers. Oh God, I hate whiskers. They're coarse hairs that are sticking out of your chin and on your chest. And if you don't already have enough to make you feel like a man, that kind of does it. Add to that vaginal dryness. You know, your vagina is the thing that makes you feel so feminine and attractive to your man, and now it goes and deceives you and makes intercourse painful. Yeah, it's not a good thing. And then in the same general region, you get urinary tract infections. As if your vaginal area wasn't already comfortable enough, you get urinary tract infections more commonly than you did before. And urinary incontinence. That's where you leak urine when you don't expect to. Just there to humiliate you even further. Are you thinking, how can we still not be finished? Doesn't it seem like we reached 22 items a long time ago? It does to me. But no, we're not finished. There's more. Weight gain. Of all the things you don't need now, you get weight gain. Mother Nature has deceived you. Your metabolism slows down and you start gaining weight. And then you can have either increased or decreased sex drive. Now, neither one goes great with a dry vagina, believe me, but you can have increased or decreased sex drive. And to top it all off, to counterbalance all those things that were making you feel old, you get acne, so you can feel like a teenager again. Just what you don't need, acne. And finally, the last one, headaches. You have headaches, which are just completely annoying no matter what. I'm exhausted. I feel like I'm just tired listing all those. Now, actually enduring them is awful. Just talking about them is bad, but enduring them is terrible. Now, are you surprised at that list? Were there more things on that list than you expected? You see, you may have only some of these things, or you may have all of these things. And some of them can be really, really severe. I mean, completely disrupt your quality of life. And others may be really mild to where you think it's no big deal. Some may appear in isolation, where that's the only thing you have to worry about. But for some women, they get a whole bunch of these. And some of these things you can notice in the perimenopausal transition phase, while others may not show up until you're well into your postmenopause, years later after your perimenopause. You know, if you look at that list more closely, you'll notice that a lot of the signs and symptoms have features that are common to other aspects of the female life cycle. You know, like some resemble adolescence. The mood swings, irritability, depression, the cravings for the sweets and carbohydrates, gaining weight, acne, increased sex drive, and headaches are all similar to things you might experience during adolescence. Some resemble pregnancy, like hot flashes, night sweats, insomnia, fatigue, mood swings, irritability for sure, and cravings for all sorts of things. There's also breast pain in pregnancy, and there's urinary leaking, and of course, weight gain. And some resemble aging, like the less frequent periods, but also insomnia and fatigue, forgetfulness for sure, and joint stiffness and joint pain, the dry skin, hair loss and hair growth where you don't want it, and the dryness of the vagina. That's pretty unique to aging, and the leaking, urinary problems with leaking, and weight gain and decreased sex drive. So if you see, these things start overlapping and you start revisiting some of the things you might have had before. And honestly, I don't know which group of these is the worst. But here's something that's important. The signs and symptoms of menopause are not exclusive to menopause. What that means is that there are some diseases that mimic menopause, meaning some diseases have some of the same signs and symptoms that menopause has. One of the most common is thyroid diseases. Whether your thyroid works too well or not well enough, it can mimic some of these signs and symptoms. And so can depression, dementia, and malnutrition. But you know, in general, if you're around the age of 50, and if what you're dealing with sounds like menopause, and feels like menopause, and the people around you suspect that it's menopause, then it probably is menopause. So, are you relieved that you don't suffer with all of the symptoms of menopause? Or are you realizing that you suffer with more symptoms of menopause than you thought you had? Or maybe you're realizing that some of the symptoms that you attributed to a medical problem are really menopause. Well, I'll tell you what, regardless of your reaction, I promise you that already you are definitely more well informed than most women. If you continue to watch these videos, you're going to learn everything you need to know about every aspect of each of these signs and symptoms of menopause. My goal is for you not to go through this in an uninformed way, wondering whether or not this or that is a symptom of menopause. So already you are way ahead of the game. Okay, now it's time for your worksheet. If you haven't printed out your worksheet, it looks like this. You can print it out. And of course, I know you're going through these tutorials systematically, chronologically in order, because you know that that's how you have to do it. And so you know that we've covered questions 1 through 3 already. So if you look at page 1, question number 4, you're going to see that long list of signs and symptoms of menopause. What I want you to do today is just put a star next to the symptoms that you're having currently. Don't circle anything yet. Why? Because, you know, we're going to go through these one at a time with a tutorial on each one of them, and I'm going to explain each one in great detail. And you'd be surprised. So many times women think they're having a symptom, but once we describe them in detail, they go, well, no, that's not what I'm having. You might find that you don't have something, or you might find that you do. So rather than circle your symptoms now, just put a star next to them. That gives you an opportunity to refine it a little bit later when I teach you more, okay? Leave yourself that option to give yourself the final answer later on, okay? This isn't your final answer. This is what you think you have before we talk about them in detail. Okay, that's it for today. I hope I haven't upset you too much with all these signs and symptoms and that great big long horrendous awful list, but hopefully I'll be able to give you solutions for all of those things that work for you, and you'll be able to take care of them any way you want, okay? Next time we're going to talk about how in the world you diagnose menopause separate from the signs and symptoms, how you diagnose it from a laboratory perspective. So tune in then. Talk to you later. Take care. Bye.